I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christine Barton. You're watching Black Teen News. Hello, welcome to Black Teen News. I'm your host, Christina Barnes. Today we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris, and she is desperate. She's desperate. Her team is desperate. That's like, people are flipping out. NBC had a poll that had Trump and Kamala tied as far as a national general election poll, not even like Michigan or Pennsylvania or something. It was a general election poll. That's not good because, I mean, they want the Democrat to be like, up 3-4 points. I mean, people were concerned when it's 3 because it's like there's some room to be wrong there, and they're tied. And so if they're that close in the general election, he's definitely going to be taking the electoral college. And now you're getting into conversations. I posed a question online, like, could he possibly even win the popular vote? Now, I don't know about that. I think that's getting people's hopes a little too high. And I don't know, because people are like, Trump's voters are very hard to poll. And I think that's true, but I don't know if the enthusiasm they're hoping for is going to be what comes out on election day, because there's a lot of people who are disenchanted and upset and aren't going to be the ones to march out there that they're kind of expecting. So I don't know what his actual on election day numbers will be. So I don't know. I think it's getting ahead of ourselves. So I just kind of posed the question out there, like, is it possible? But I don't know. I don't think maybe we're there yet, or he's there yet. Just don't hold your breath for that. But it's not looking good as far as her fate in the swing states, and you can tell even from conversations from internal polling and people sounding the alarm, the way that they're switching up tactics is pretty extreme. And for example, Kamala Harris is going to go on Fox News for an interview. Tim Walz already started to go on Fox News. Kamala Harris is going to do an interview with Bret Baier. Now, Bret is very fair, and Bret he'll press Trump. So I don't expect this to be a softball interview. I don't expect it to be like extra aggressive or anything, but I would think there's something fishy if he doesn't ask her some important questions that will likely destroy her. Because she doesn't have good answers. And even if she could speak well, she doesn't have good answers, not to defend herself, not to defend the job that she's done as vice president, as a senator, and her time in California as a DA, and etc. So it's funny. So we'll be talking about that. Also, I want to show you guys some clips of JD Vance just like destroying some journalists over the weekend. And also I want to talk about a casting for Green Lantern. People are upset. There's this actor, Aaron Pierre, and he was in a movie called Rebel Ridge. It's the only thing I know him from. I watched it on Netflix. Actually, I was at my parents' house, and my sisters wanted to show it to someone else. And I just kind of sat there and watched the whole thing, and I was engrossed in it. And from that film, I'm like, he can absolutely be Jon Stewart. He can absolutely be Jon Stewart. But there's people who are upset because they think he's too light-skinned. And they think this is colorism and DC being bad people. And some of the people online who are complaining are also people who have no problem when white people are just, their roles go to non-white people. So now they're upset that there's people who aren't, I guess, black enough for them taking particular roles. So I got some thoughts about that. I'm going to leave that to the very end. So we're going to talk about our politics first, and then we're going to get into our pop culture. But before we jump into everything, I hope you all had a fabulous weekend. I had a good weekend myself. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you, oh, my sound isn't coming from the mic. Okay, hold on, guys. Gotta fix my microphone. There we go. It should sound better, clearer, better. Someone said they cannot take those people being serious. Probably, I'm assuming. I don't know if you mean Kamala Harris, or if you mean these pop culture folks. But again, we'll get to that. Okay. Thank you. To those of you in the chat. Thank you. Thank you to those who watch live. Those to you who watch back later. Again, go to my website, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. I saw some of my cousins over the weekend, second cousins, who live in Arizona, and they're really big Republicans, young men, doing the Lord's work, not the Lord's work, but doing some good work. They are doing the Lord's work. They are sold out for the Lord, and very bold young men. And so when I saw him, like, there's my Republican cousins, and I hugged them. And one of them, I started telling them about my stuff and what I do, and so they're really like amazed, and they're like, well, we don't have social media. That's a choice. I'm like, it's probably a good choice. I'm like, I can't say anything bad about it. I'm like, social media is so toxic. So, good on you. And so they're like, well, what's your website? So I told them my website. They're like, I'm going to go look at your articles. So go look at the articles on the website. I wrote a post about being pro-choice, and I think I talked about it a little bit on air last week. But I shared it on YouTube, and I shared it on Facebook. I recommend you guys go find it and read it and share it. And I don't think a lot of people break it down the way that I broke it down, and not enough people have broken it down the way that I broke it down. So please go ahead and share that particular post. I wanted to share it as a post because I thought I'd get more shares as a post than as an article, but I probably will also put it as an article for people like my cousins who do not like social media. So I'll go ahead and put it on my website too as an article, but go ahead and share that around. Again, in November the 3rd, I will have an author signing in Ann Arbor, and at the K Book Fest. From my book window for my signing will be 10 to 12, and then I'll run down for church back to the to Oakland County. And then that weekend I'll have Motor City Comic Con. I'll let you guys know if there's any other events upcoming. Other than that, just we'll be really busy doing videos and other stuff, gearing up for the election, guys. But I'll keep you up to date. And if you guys want to support, you guys can go to the website, check out different content on the website, of course, and you can donate there. But you guys can also check out different merch like the Black Tea mug and so on. So anyway, let's hop to it. So Kamala Harris, I just stumbled across a tweet. Okay, so I already mentioned this, but in case you missed it, Kamala Harris has agreed to go on Fox News. And they weren't like, first of all, they weren't doing any interviews at first. First, like 40 days, totally dodging. Her surrogates were justifying dodging any kind of interviews. And they would say, oh, she's talking to the people. And why they mean talking to the people, they meant she would have rallies and she would read from a teleprompter. But she wasn't taking impromptu questions. She wasn't doing any like sit down interviews, anything like that. And her first like sit down interview was like, well, her first sit down interview, who was that with? I can't remember. Was it ABC? Maybe. I can't recall, but it was with Tim Walz, and that was after a full 40 days. And then she did another interview, and it was like a local interview, and it went so bad. They didn't air the whole thing, I don't think, like everywhere, but it was so bad. Donald Trump's team just posted the whole thing online. No cuts, No, like, because campaigns, they'll take little snippets that are like 2 seconds long, and you have to look up more to see if there's some context to see if it's really bad, is what they're saying. They just posted the whole entire thing and said our new ad just dropped. That's how bad it was. And I watched it, and it was so bad. It was so bad. It took like 4 minutes to answer a question. It was just ridiculous. So she was still wasn't doing a lot of interviews, but now we're seeing, she went on that podcast, Call Her Daddy, and she Tim Walz went on Fox News, and she started to do some other stuff. So now she is going on Fox News, and she's going with Bret Baier. And Bret Baier is fair. Bret Baier and Martha, I thought if it would have been great if the two of them could have hosted a debate, and her team didn't want to do it. Obviously, now Trump doesn't want to do a debate now, but sorry, I knocked over a water bottle. Trump doesn't want to do another debate now, but Fox News had proposed a debate before, and Trump wanted a debate on Fox News, and they didn't want to say yes. And they're like, oh, Fox News, no, because they're liars, because we all know they are, because of that lawsuit with Dominion Software, even though CNN is like in a lawsuit right now for false things that they said over the air, slandering some guy. And there's malicious intent. they got them suckers like Jake Tapper and other folks are pulled into it. Jake Tapper didn't have any like nasty texts that I'm aware of, but he did a segment or whatever on it too. So CNN is in some major trouble as far as being dishonest about people. So I'm like, that's a lame excuse, but Bret and Martha are pretty fair. They host a good debate, but her team didn't want to do it. And this was prior to, her doing a decent job at the debate she had against Donald Trump, who did not do a very good job. And so now they want more debates, and they're teasing Trump for not doing more debates. And the reason why they want more debates is because the American people have either seen too much and have the wrong impression, or they have not seen enough and they don't trust her, and they'd rather go with the devil they know. And they don't trust that she'll be a transformative new way forward out of the mess that we're kind of in, because people don't like the economy, they don't like the state of the country, and they just rather go back to someone like, maybe they don't like Trump, but things were more comfortable then. And we've survived, we already survived 4 years, we can survive another 4. I don't know, like they're just kind of nostalgic for the past a little bit, and they don't like what they see right now. So she's trying to change the narrative, change people's opinions, and she went on Colbert and stuff, but those aren't the folks that she needs to reach. She needs to reach, people on Fox News, some independents who watch that stuff, maybe appeal to some people who think she's too radical and are done with Trump. Maybe she can get some, some Republican voters besides some neocons or whatever. They're trying, they're desperate. So someone said, to get this interview, Fox News and Bret Baier had to make so many concessions to Harris' team that this interview will be as watered down as they come. Not interested, someone said. And someone then replied and said, there's no way Bret Baier agreed to any preconditions with the Harris campaign. Knowing Bret, I would expect a tough, fair interview. That's what Tom Bevan said in response to that viewer. Let me just share my screen so you guys can see what I'm actually reading. And Bret Baier confirmed, yeah, there's no preconditions. I wouldn't expect that they'd have preconditions. Thanks, Tom. There are no preconditions to get the interview. No one has the questions ahead of time except me. No topic is off the table. And if there is any editing, it would be very minimal for timing and will be editorially the same question and answer. We are pre-taping the interview right before my live show Wednesday in Pennsylvania. Thanks. So this ought to be interesting. There's no way, I can't see any reality where she does this interview well, because she hasn't done any good interviews. When she went on The View, she was asked, like, how are you, can you think of anything you would do different than Joe Biden? And she said, nothing comes to mind. That's alarm bells for them. And the Trump campaign was like, that's going to be our closing message, man. I don't know if closing messages, there's still a lot they can say, but they instantly were like, okay, this is going to be cannon fodder. Like, we got her. We're going to use that. And I've seen already memes and plenty of videos taking that, mocking her. I saw one I think my sister sent it to me on TikTok where she was thinking about it, and there was a thought bubble that came, and there was just like catastrophe after catastrophe, Afghanistan and other stuff, and the economy, and people crying about how dangerous stuff is and how they can't feed their families. And then she's just like, nothing comes to mind, So people are playing with that big time. So she screwed up with that one. And the Oprah interview, my oldest sister was talking about, she's like, I think that really hurt her, the Oprah interview. And she's like, Oprah was probably sitting across from her thinking like, oh my gosh, this woman is an idiot. And she it's just puzzling because she's wanted this for so long and she's so obviously bad at it. So that's what my sister just can't figure out. She's just like, does she not practice? Like, what is this? Like, why is she so awful at this? So now Kamala Harris and her team are trying something very interesting. They're going with the, hey, Trump, he needs to like show his records and all this kind of different stuff. And like, they're like, I took a health test and he's not taking a health test and showing all of his records. And the audacity of this is just crazy. It's crazy because Kamala Harris hid and still defends hiding, and I guess won't admit to Joe Biden in his decline. And he's obviously declined, but they can't admit how much he's declined, even though we can all see it. Because she would have a constitutional duty to invoke the 25th Amendment, and I'm sure that's probably how they threatened him and got him and Jill to agree to him to bow out, which he's not happy about. In Axios, we talked about this last week, and my suspicions, I'm like, I don't think he wants her to win. There's friction. Axios did a report about how there's friction between their two camps, citing some of the same stuff that I went over, like she's about to do a rally in Michigan and he does like a press conference thing, a press briefing. And so that takes away coverage from her being in Michigan. Right. So, there's just things like that, or she's trying to build her record and he keeps like grabbing her and saying, oh, we're just copacetic, we're singing from the same song sheet and all this stuff. So she can't really build her own message or even make the argument that she would do things differently because he's like, oh, she was there for important stuff and this and that. And so just tying her to the hip, to him, his broken hip, I'm sure. So them going this route now of seriously saying stuff like Donald Trump needs to, what is he hiding? He needs to, release his medical records, knowing how much he hid from Joe Biden. Now, granted, Trump is old and he'll be the oldest person who's been in office, but Biden would have been the oldest person in office until they made him step aside. And they were going gung-ho on this. And there have been talks and suspicions that Joe Biden would be replaced and warnings that, hey, this will be the new talking point if Joe Biden steps aside, and then Trump will be the oldest person and they will talk about how old he is. And they started ragging on him like immediately after that. But, it's not sticking because people are like, y'all just tried to push Joe Biden through. And though Trump doesn't seem like as vigorous as he did in 2016 and stuff, he's definitely older and doesn't have the same energy and so on, but he's still not like on Biden's level. Like, I do think we need younger people. And, I think that's maybe one reason why JD Vance is on the ticket, to kind of like show that next gen or whatever. But, you've been trying to pitch that Biden is fine. And they've been, they had Alzheimer's doctors and stuff coming to the White House and tried to like lie about it. And they covered so much stuff. So you can't just be the face of this cover up of Biden's condition, try to gaslight everybody, like at that video when Obama is like walking him off stage. I don't have it geared up, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Remember it because it was everywhere. They were at a fundraiser, it was George Clooney's fundraiser, and Obama's walking him off stage, and people were like, "This looks terrible. This looks terrible." And Kamala Harris's people were like, "No, like look at this director's cut that we have where they're like zooming in and out, zooming in and out." I'm like, y'all worked for y'all money that day, but the full like version that's like shows them like in one shot the whole entire time, it doesn't look good. He looks frail and like he really needs the help, and it's slow, and he looks a little confused, and it doesn't look great. And so people were talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, these cheap fakes." That's what the White House was calling them. They were calling them cheap fakes. Cheap freaking fakes. Okay. That's what they were saying. And then the debate happened. And Biden looked terrible. He's like, you know, a long time, that split screen between him and Trump. He just ugh, it was awful. You could almost feel bad for him, but he's kind of evil, so it is what it is. But it is elder abuse, though, I think, and that's bad. And then they started ringing alarm bells, really questioning if he can do the job and so on. And then the media wanted to find religion all of a sudden and really push him. And eventually, the donors and all these folks were able to push him out. But then we started hearing that those people at that same event, we saw him leaving and he looked awful. People at that same event were all saying what we were all saying. Like, oh my gosh, he looks awful. He looks dead. This looks really bad. Oh my gosh, there's a debate coming up. What's going to happen? Well, either he'll be fine and will be just a bad night, or everyone will see what we just saw. And we all saw what they saw, but we saw it the same night they did in that little tiny clip. But they lied and they covered stuff. So, what Robert Hur reported, about him, being a man with a bad memory and all that stuff. They tried to act like that was nonsense. And we knew it was true. And then he would try to go out there and justify himself. And he made himself look like a larger fool. So Kamala Harris and them trying to find, there's a snippet of her defending Biden. Maybe I don't have it queued up. But Kamala Harris went out there and was like, "Oh, that was so inappropriate what Robert Hur did," saying all that stuff. It's like, okay, well, if he's fine enough, if he's healthy enough, then just prosecute him and let the jury decide what happens. Like, you guys got your weird W because he got out of trouble, but they should have considered really pushing out then, not allowing them to get to the point where he got to debate and Trump had to do all this preparation for his election against another candidate, who they swapped out at last minute. So, it's crazy, but, this is the route that they're going.
He's not being transparent with the voters. He's not being transparent. So check this out. He refuses to release his medical records. I've done it. Every other presidential candidate in modern era has done it. He's not being transparent.
Yeah, so that's the route they're going. So you guys are probably like, that's considering what they were doing with Biden, because they weren't being honest about that man, and she's still not honest about that man if they ask her about it. And I hope Brett Baier brings this up, because this is their line of attack, which will not work. It won't work for anyone who's paying attention and who's like honest with themselves. So I hope he brings it up and says, okay, Biden was obviously facing a decline, and he there's a reason why he's not the nominee and you are right now. So why are you attacking Trump, but you were pushing Biden, covering for Biden 2 seconds ago? And just watch her fumble. I want to see her fumble through that answer. I want to see that, because she's been defending him nonstop. And to be honest, they did release some stuff about her. I'm more curious how healthy her liver is, to be frank, because there's some certain substances that harm your liver. And and I'm more curious about what if she would release an IQ test, to be honest. I'm like, release the IQ test. That's what I really want to see. The IQ test. Anyway, things aren't looking great. And there's been a big shift in the polls. People are trusting Biden more. I mean Trump more than Kamala Harris, and he's just had, big shifts here. Let's watch this real quick.
No, absolutely not. And maybe a reason for that, too, is remember, she's the VP in an unpopular administration. Look, we asked Joe Biden's policies as president, do you think they're helping or hurting your family? Look at that. Almost 2-to-1 say hurting more than helping. His job approval rating is in the low 40s. And then here's the twist. When you ask folks, when Trump was president, were his policies helping or hurting? Look at that difference. 44% say helping, 31% say they hurt. So retrospectively, wow, Trump is getting some numbers here. No, absolutely not. And maybe
so, I mean, people trust him now, plus 25 on the border for Trump. Inflation, cost of living, you trust him more. Represent change. She's up on him with that, but it's gone down in the shift. So she's the joy has worn off. The joy has worn off. Maybe if she only had 2 months, I don't know if they could have pulled that off. It was even shorter. But, I mean, we vote so long that would have been impractical. But here's some more data for you guys.
I mean, the bottom line is this: at this particular hour, if you believe the polling, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance with black voters since Richard Nixon back in 1960, not 68, since 1960. That's 64 years ago. Among Hispanic voters, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance for Republicans since 2004 and George W. Bush.
So Trump's doing well with minorities, and Hispanic voters have already been shifting toward, Republicans anyway, because, I mean, they're just more culturally conservative. And if you fled from a place like Cuba or something like that, you don't want the place that you fled to become what you fled from. So, and Kamala Harris is still having trouble with black men. We talked about this last week because we mentioned, Obama scolding, which people are trying to walk back. I saw someone from CNN saying like, Obama wasn't scolding black men. He absolutely was. He absolutely was. And people are not having it. She's got an issue. So she's rolling out some specific things to try to appeal to black voters. I have just seen reports on it. I haven't gone through it yet, so I'll have to talk about more of that tomorrow. But the pandering, the specific pandering is going to be very hard and zoned in because they know this is a trouble area for her. But here's the thing: Democrats shouldn't be having trouble there. That's supposed to be their base that's on lock. And she's a woman of color. That's supposed to be like the benefit of having someone like her. But the problem is that people don't like her specifically as an individual. There's some people out there who's sexist, but they don't like her. They don't like her. They don't like the things that she's done. And you can't just expect everybody to get over that, even with all the fear mongering in the world. Now, there's some people, I was on a live on TikTok. I came home from church on Friday and I decided to do a live on TikTok. I just hadn't done it in a while. And I know that they push videos more that are on live, and they've been suppressing my videos a little bit. So I decided to go live for a little bit. And so, but first before I did my own live, I had jumped in someone else's live because I was scrolling and I saw someone who was, criticizing um, Obama and the stuff that he said. So I jumped in there and I'm like, hey, I said a couple things, mostly about how they keep lying about Project 2025. And some of those folks, guys in there who were pro Harris, they started calling Trump racist and sexist. And he's like, oh, he says all this terrible stuff. And they're not specific. And I'm just kind of waiting for them to say specific things or whatever that I can address. And one of them said, I've watched Trump spew racism from the podium. And me and the host were like, okay, you gotta be specific about that. What are you talking about? And then he said, well, I dismissed Trump. I was done with him after Charlottesville. And we're like, oh my gosh, Charlottesville. I'm like, don't tell me. Like, I saw the press conference. I'm like, you didn't watch it all, or you weren't listening the whole time. Maybe this wasn't Friday. Maybe this was Wednesday night or something, because I feel like I've had this discussion. So maybe I told you guys, or maybe I told somebody else. But I was just like floored. No, I'm pretty sure it was Friday. So I don't think I told you guys this story yet. Because I stayed up really late and was not well on Saturday. But but I was just floored. I'm like, we're still doing this? We're still doing this? And this is why I say all the time, people who don't like Trump, who are on the left, they don't even dislike him for a lot of legitimate reasons. Like people on the right who are actually going to support him could probably name more legitimate reasons to not like him and maybe not even vote for him than people on the left, because most of the reasons why they don't like him are freaking imaginary. Like believing that he called neo-Nazis very fine people, and they still believe that. I'm like, please just go watch the whole video. Go watch the whole video again. Go read the transcript. And you know what? When that first happened, the emotions were so high, even on the right. It to me, it seemed like if you try to defend Trump and you were on the right, you were attacked, even from people on the right. And so people just let the negative feelings stir, about Trump. And so I don't think people really started to push back on the narrative until Scott Adams started to really just push. And he started to just share the transcript, not the whole video, just the transcript. And there was a particular image where he had a red box around what Trump said, and there's what he said, and then there's like a paragraph of like questions or whatever, and then Trump back to I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis, I condemn them totally. And so people were just sharing that around. And so like Snopes didn't do an article about that until like this year, and media was slow on debunking the narrative, because that's what Democrats push. And Biden, he was confronted by Breitbart and other folks who are like, hey, that what you're saying isn't true. And he just kept spewing his lies over and over again. And it's still repeated. Biden said it on the debate stage. Kamala said it on the debate stage. And people are still just lapping it up like stupid dogs. And so some people are so, in their crazy and in the narrative that maybe their minds can't be changed. And at this point, I don't know how many people want to be changed, their minds be changed, because people don't like to be wrong. People don't like to be wrong because they don't want to face that embarrassment of spewing that stuff for so long. But there are some people who don't mind being corrected and will take the correction. Like CNN is still pushing that story about Amari. I think it's Amari Marsh, if I'm not mistaken. I think I retweeted something about her. I think it's Amari. And Amari is the first name. I think Marsh is her last name. But they're still pushing. Because they said a woman lost her pregnancy and she got arrested. Okay, she didn't lose. If you heard lost her pregnancy, I'm sure your mind goes to she had a miscarriage. She was arrested for having a miscarriage, and like, this is what happens in a post Roe v. Wade world. She delivered her baby early, like prematurely, in a toilet, likely because of her chlamydia infection. And she's panicking. Granted, I can understand panicking. She called 911, and the dispatcher repeatedly told her to take the baby out of the toilet. And so when the authorities arrived, the baby was in the toilet with used toilet paper, like covered in used toilet paper. So it's not just like in the water and in the blood. It's in the pee or whatever else was in the toilet with the mother. Well, I mean, as she expelled whatever. And so the baby still had signs of life, and they tried to revive it. Didn't survive. And so she was charged because she failed to respond to the directions to take the baby out of the toilet. She didn't have a miscarriage. She wasn't charged for having a miscarriage. And even if there was a pro-life law about killing your baby, none of those would apply to that, because they still don't charge the mothers in any like pro-life law that's active right now in the country. So even if she had aborted her baby, she still wouldn't go to jail. They always, like, if someone had given her a pill or someone had done an illegal abortion on her, that person would go to jail. But if the mother themselves is the abortionist, they don't charge them. That's just how the laws work in the pro-life ideology. I kind of fancy myself more of an abolitionist these days, but so that's the narrative they're pushing. And so I saw all these retweets and stuff about it. And some people in the retweets, the quote retweets, are like, this is not true. This is not true. Like, why are you guys spreading this propaganda? She let her baby die in a toilet. And I can only imagine what her headspace was in that moment. And the grand jury ended up, deciding not to prosecute her further. So, maybe they made the right decision. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But trying to use that situation to scare women into supporting abortion is insane. So there were some people, I started going in the quote retweets and saying she let her baby die in a toilet. And I posted an article because I did write about that on my website. And CNN did like share those details in their original article about it, but they're like way down in the article. So they know the real facts of the story. But the headline is insane. Let me I know we talked about this before, but let me go to my website real quick and just read the first paragraph, because I don't remember exactly what the headline was, but it was crazy. Okay, she was accused of murder after losing her pregnancy. South Carolina woman now tells her story. After reading the CNN headline, would you guess that Amari Marsh went through early labor, likely due to her chlamydia infection, and was charged because she didn't remove her live child from the toilet after 911 dispatchers told her to? Probably not. So anyway, that article's on my website. So I started posting that, in people's replies, in their quote retweets about it. And at least one person was like, thank you very much. I just deleted the post. So there's some people who just don't know and are willing to listen. They just don't know the facts. And unfortunately, people spread such misinformation online, and it goes around the world very quickly. But this wasn't just online, like on X. I mean, this particular tweet that is setting this all off is on, on X. But they talked about it because they were going to do a story on it on the program. So they're still pushing this misinformation and they know all the details, but they just want to construct it in a way that just makes the stance that, hey, you shouldn't kill your baby bad. It's insane. And it's between that and CBS, we talked about CBS a lot last week, and them chopping up 60 Minutes to make Kamala look good, and how they were mad that Ta-Nehisi Coates was questioned about his just stupid book that's full of racial nonsense and just factual errors, you know, them and just and the debate. That there's so much distrust in the media. There's so much distrust in the media. And they deserve that mistrust. I mean, the distrust. They deserve it. But I do think it's overall just sad, the state of our world. I do think it's sad. Anyway, let me move on to JD Vance and some of his W's from the weekend. JD Vance is just incredible at some of these interviews. And so he did one with New York Times, and he did one with Martha Raddatz. But let me play the this clip is viral, talking about illegal immigration. And there was an old trend on TikTok, and it was like, show me two clips that have the same energy. And there's this clip, and there's also, did you ever see when Donald Trump was running the first time? And I think it was maybe The View, and Kelly Osbourne was on it. And she's like, if you deport all of the illegal immigrants or whatever, or migrants or whatever, then who's going to clean your toilets, Donald Trump? And then the panel was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So that's what this clip gives me. That's the energy that this particular clip gives me. It's pretty remarkable.
The reason that there is a housing crisis is that not enough houses have been built.
And that we have 25 million people who shouldn't be here.
Well, I mean, this is the thing.
I think it's both.
I know you do. I don't think that many people who look into this agree with you, but about a third of the construction workforce in this country is Hispanic. Of those, a large portion are undocumented. So how do you propose to build all the housing necessary that we need in this country by removing all the people who are working in construction?
I think it's a fair question, because we know that back in the 1960s, when we had very low levels of illegal immigration, Americans didn't buy houses, didn't build houses. But of course they did. And I'm being sarcastic, of course, in service of a point, Lulu, the assumption that because a large number of home builders now are using undocumented labor, that's the only way to build homes, I think, again,
the country is much bigger.
Fundamental.
The need is much bigger. I mean, I'm not arguing in favor of illegal immigration. I'm
Sounds
asking
like
how you would deal with the knock-on effect of your proposal to remove millions of people who work in a critical part of the economy.
Well, I think that what you would do is you would take, let's say, for example, the 7 million prime age men who have dropped out of the labor force, and you have a smaller number of women, but still millions of women prime age who have dropped out of the labor force. You absolutely could re-engage folks into the American labor market. This is, I think,
To work in construction?
Of course you could.
I
So
mean,
long as you
the unemployment rate is 4.1%. Most people who
unemployment rate, Lulu, this is important.
But most people who don't work can't work in the regular economy. They're in the military, they're parents, they're sick, they're old. They might not want to work in construction.
The unemployment rate does not count labor force participation dropouts. And again, this is one of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society, is it gets us in a mindset of saying we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million, just men, not even women, just men who have completely dropped out of the labor force. People say, well, Americans won't do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs for below the table wages. They won't do those jobs for non-living wages. But people will do those jobs. They will just do those jobs at certain wages. And think about this from the perspective of an American company, okay? I want them to go searching in their own country for their own citizens. Sometimes people who may be struggling with addiction or trauma, get them re-engaged in American society. We cannot have an entire American business community that is giving up on American workers and then importing millions of illegal laborers. That is what we have thanks to Kamala Harris's border policies. I think it's one of the biggest drivers of inequality. It's one of the biggest reasons why we have millions of people who have dropped out of the labor force. Why try to re-engage an American citizen in a good job if you can just import somebody from Central America who's going to work under the table for poverty wages? It is a disgrace, and it has led to the evisceration of the American middle class.
Just stunning. He's really good at this. He's really good at the interviews. And this whole idea, like, I mean, people do have that mindset, like, who's gonna pick our food and who's gonna do this? But you know, people will do jobs if you, like he said, if you pay them well. And you're talking about construction. Like, I heard one of my cousins last night, they were talking about, because they played tennis and stuff, and I was like, how's the tennis going? And I'm like, are you going pro? And he kind of just shook his head, and he's like, I'm gonna work in construction. His dad's like, what? He's like, you ain't gonna, he's like, yes I am. I'm like, I'm gonna do construction. And so they're just, and I don't know why his dad was kind of laughing at the idea of him doing that. But I'm like, there's always construction. They always find projects to do. And I'm like, these roads are like never fixed. They don't like do stuff to like fix them like super long term. And like they, it seems like they take a long time to do and so on. So and they pay well. They pay well. So I'm like driving around, I'm like seeing all this construction for these stupid roundabouts. I'm like, was it worth it? Was it worth it to just derail our lives like this for a roundabout? I don't think so. I don't even like these things. We don't know how to drive in them. Like I hate them. They put a roundabout near the one of the malls, and there was just police just like parked out there just waiting to get people and just like issue out them tickets like they making it rain. There's always construction going on. So people will do those jobs. They just as he said, you just got to pay people well. But they're like, what about the illegals? But the left is like, I'm not saying there aren't people on the right who aren't into cheap under the table labor. I don't want to give that impression, but like Elon Musk is being attacked by the Justice Department for not properly considering, non-Americans for jobs and stuff, like people with like refugee status and stuff. For his companies. So they are like obsessed with those folks having jobs, I think, more than Americans. And he's right that the unemployment rate doesn't consider people who dropped out of the market and have just checked out. And if there were good jobs for them available, and they, I don't know, felt like there was that opportunity and there's purpose and getting paid well, not just going out there doing something, but that they could really make money, put stuff aside, do stuff for their family. That's a real good way for people to re-engage back into society. So a lot of people feel, people in general need jobs and stuff. It makes them feel meaning, So that was one of the interviews. And where he was just doing a great job there. Now, there was another one with Miss Martha where he just bodied her. So let me show you guys that one.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
I would say that he did body her there because they do sound so ridiculous. Because here's the thing: people like her, and this is the commentary that's going around with this clip. People are noting, like, acknowledging, in which ABC is like trying to say all that stuff is like a conspiracy now. That's how they're coping with this. But she in the interview is like, it's just like a couple apartment complexes or whatever. And he's like, that what you said was silly. What you said doesn't make sense. Like, isn't it just bad that this is happening? Can we just pause for a moment and just acknowledge that what you said is crazy and should be happening in America? Because those people who are doing this shouldn't be here in America because they're illegals. But you can just like, it's not a big deal. It's not happening to me. That would never happen in my neighborhood. We'd have helicopters and guns and they'd take those heathens out, Like, it's fine that it's not happening to you, but other people who are harmed, you don't care about their problem because it's too small for you to care. And this is like the kind of reason why Trump was elected the first time, because he was talking to the forgotten man. I don't know how much he talks about that nowadays, but when 2016, that was a really important part of his campaign. The forgotten man, the flyover country that folks just kind of ignore. He was speaking to those groups of people. It resonated with folks. So folks who are blue collar, who, union folks who, in areas like Macomb and other places, he tapped into those voters who really attached to him. Was like, you know what, he's speaking my language, and I got to consider shifting, and getting engaged because these other people don't know me. Like, the Democrat Party has left me and I'm still here and I need some help, and he gets me. So these folks, like, it's happening, but it's just a few apartment complexes, just a couple people who are harmed. Okay, you can dismiss it, but the people who are actually going through it, they want some kind of help, and they don't understand why this problem is happening, and they don't understand why people don't care more. It's like people not caring about the illegal immigration stuff, and then, Abbott and DeSantis, they start taking people to Martha's Vineyard or just putting them in New York and Chicago and other places, and folks are like, wait a second here. Our system can't handle it. Oh, but you just think like border towns in Texas are supposed to handle it. Because it wasn't your problem. So now it's a shared problem, and now there's issues. And now you got to get millions upon millions of dollars from FEMA so you can start dishing out checks to the folks who are here to alleviate your burden. Okay. People see that and they don't like it. People want to wonder why Black men got an issue. Maybe it's because they had to kick their kids out of school so they could house the illegals for a little bit. Maybe it's just stuff like that. Maybe it's they're going through and people are dishing out money for folks who don't belong here. Maybe it's stuff like that. Who knows? I'm just spitting bullets here. They're just ideas. They're just ideas. So these people are joke anything to help this woman win. It's not going to work though. Which, by the way, Did you guys see, I guess I'm not too prepared to really talk too much about this because I like to show a video that I made some time ago, but Gretchen Whitmer um is in some hot water because she made a video with some influencer. I'm not familiar with this influencer. I know she's like a pro-abortion influencer, whatever, but I don't know what else, she does. But Gretchen Whitmer like gave a chip to her and she was feeding this lady, and she was on her knees. And then the camera just panned back at Whitmer and she's looking like, yeah, this is a little weird. And so Catholics were like, okay, you're mocking communion. You're mocking Holy Communion. And they were really upset. Now, I don't know if there was some kind of TikTok trend. I don't know what was the purpose of that. It was just weird. And I don't understand people wanting to be so trendy that they do things that are obviously inappropriate and they're a governor. I don't understand how someone from her team isn't like, madam, like that's not a good idea. It was and she knew it was weird. Like why are you so desperate to be trendy or relevant that you just slam the door in your freaking face like that? I don't understand it. And I don't know for sure if they were mocking communion, but people thought that it was evident and very clear that that's what she was doing. And so she released a statement about it. And she said, over 25 years in public service, I would never do something to denigrate someone's faith. I've used my platform to stand up for people's right to hold and practice their personal religious beliefs. My team has spoken to the Michigan Catholic Conference. What was supposed to be a video about the importance of the CHIPS Act to Michigan jobs has been construed as something it was never intended to be. And I apologize for that. Now, I saw the video. I don't know how you would watch that video and be like, oh yeah, the CHIPS Act, that really helped Michigan. I wouldn't have thought that in a million years. So obviously another big miss from her team. Where's the brain cells in the room? Where are the brain cells? Calling all brain cells. Okay. I don't see how you get that, okay? But as far as her standing up for people's beliefs, that's cap. When Dana Nessel was going after like Catholic adoption agencies and stuff for foster stuff, they didn't want them to be in business if they would not accept like, same-sex couples and stuff. And so Dana Nessel was going after him pretty hard until there was another case that went to the Supreme Court and ruled in the favor of the religious, agency. So then they dropped that, but they have discriminated and gone after religious folks. Okay. So she's not some kind of beacon of fairness of people's beliefs, particularly not Christians, maybe other people's beliefs because it runs counter to Christians, but not Christians. But this idea that she's never used her, she would never denigrate someone's faith, that's absolutely not true. That's absolutely not true. And my mind immediately went to her mocking thoughts and prayers. She was on a debate stage with Tudor Dixon, and then she was, talking about guns and stuff. So she decided to mock thoughts and prayers, just as many Democrats and folks on the left do when there's some kind of tragedy. And so at the time, I was that was during the midterms. At the time, I gave her like an emotional rebuttal to her because of her awful COVID policies. And my dad was in the hospital after the day after the 2020 election, and we couldn't see him because of the rules. And we could just call him here and there, but he was like, I don't know, he's like losing his mind in the hospital. And it was like being on an episode of House. Like he's fine one day and then all of a sudden he's like crashing and all kinds of different stuff. It was a really hard time for my family. But the thing that got him through was, we'd call him and my sister's like, Dad, all these people because he go around the world to minister to different people, been to Kenya and Nigeria and Pakistan and all over South America and different places. And so she's like, all these people who you've been praying for and you've ministered to, they're praying for you now. So our prayers, their prayers, it just gave him the strength to fight, to keep fighting. And he survived, and when he got back home, he had to, do physical therapy and really work, and his muscles had totally like atrophied. He had to learn how to walk again. And he did, so he could go back on the mission field, and he wanted to go back to Mexico and preach to the people, and that's what he did. And so I'm like, don't tell me that thoughts and prayers don't work. I mean, I think they work for other reasons, supernatural reasons and other stuff like that. But just for the encouragement that my dad had, just that strength to pull him through. Because again, we weren't allowed to see him because of the COVID policies, which I think too many people probably died from just being alone and not having the comfort of people. So many people declined in nursing homes, but beyond the fact that they were mixing COVID patients with nursing home patients and stuff, but just people not being able to see their family. And beyond that, people who were healthy, but like mentally unwell because of the isolation. We did so much harm during that time. And she was part of that harm. So immediately when she's like, I've never denigrated someone's faith, I'm like, yes, you have. You absolutely have. You absolutely have. So I don't accept his apology. I'm not, I wasn't a Catholic who was upset about it. I was just like weirded out mostly. I didn't know what it was supposed to be, honestly. My mind didn't go communion. I mean, I take communion. I don't take communion like that, but it just seemed like weirdly sexual and odd, and I didn't know what was going on. I can see why people say it looked like communion though. But I wouldn't accept her apology. No way. I wouldn't, because her apology is dishonest. So if you want to apologize and be sincere, you can at least start telling the truth when you give it. Last thing I want to talk about today. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Craig. He said, don't know your parents, but they produce good fruit. Thank you so much. It is so sweet. I want to show you guys a couple of TikToks about this Green Lantern situation. So we're going to move into our pop culture. I said we get to our pop culture at the very end. So, an actor named Aaron Pierre. I don't know what he's been in besides Rebel Ridge. Rebel Ridge is on Netflix, and my sister wanted to show it to someone else in the house. We were over my parents' house, and so I was like, "Yeah, you guys can put on the movie." And I was just kind of on my phone a bit, but I was watching the movie, and I was interested in like what's going to happen, because it's about asset forfeiture and how, I won't go into the movie too much, but there was a guy who's trying to get a relative out to bail him out, and the police like took his money, didn't have a good reason, and so he was really trying to get his family out and get his money back and stuff, and it just kept like escalating, and he stumbled upon a big like shady controversy thing going on. So the actor, and again, I'd never seen him in anything else. I don't think I have, but he just had presence. He was a big dude. He was very fit, and he just seemed dangerous, okay, in his role. And he got cast as Jon Stewart in a Green Lantern. I guess I don't know if it was a movie or a TV show, but DC is going to be putting out, DC Comics, and DC Entertainment, whatever. So it's not just going to be about him, because there's going to be Hal Jordan and other Lanterns in it, and they did other casting. But I found out about this because I was scrolling through TikTok, and the one guy, I don't even follow King Lion, but he pops in my feed a lot because I do follow, comment and watch things about pop culture. And his video about it came up because folks are upset because they think this man is too light-skinned. And King Lion did a response video to it. And I'm about to show you the response video, but I replied in his comments, and all I said was, some people just want to be mad. And I got a lot of likes on it, that comment. Some people were like, no, people got a reason to be mad. And some people made comments. I'm like, did you watch his video? He just proved like people upset about it are silly. But somebody left a comment under my comment with 3 raccoons. So they're calling me a coon because I said some people just want to be mad. And he made a video showing that there are various shades throughout the comics where they show Jon Stewart, not just like as a dark brown man, but just as a brown man. And some people are upset because the picture he uses in the video, Pierre is brown and darker than me in the image that he had, but there's images of him where he's more yellow and lighter than I am, I think, or the tint of yellow, I think, is lighter. I don't know in the spectrum how much darker it would be. But anyway, and some people are like, well, he's really light and that's a tan that he has. Yeah, black people tend to do that. Yeah, or just people in general tend to tan. Yeah, sure. But what kills me though is that, and I'm going to show you another video. I'm going to show you two TikToks because they show examples of other TikTokers who were praising the fact that different white characters were no longer white and they were replaced with light-skinned people or whoever, but they just weren't white. So they were happy. They were happy they weren't white. But now we have a situation where a black man is casted and he's not black enough. Even though after seeing that movie, I have no doubt that he can play the character. I have no doubt he can do it. And everybody was talking about that movie. So he's probably hot stuff right now. And people, these studios, they look at who can do the part and who's hot stuff, who's going to attract eyeballs to see it, that's considered as well. Not just, are they the right shade of brown? In a world where people can tan or wear makeup or get darker or whatever. So I'm going to start off with this King Lion video, and then I'm going to show you the other one. So give me one. I got to share my screen. But I got to show you something else too, but I'll show you guys after the TikTok. What's funny about this stuff though is that some of these drive-by people who are upset don't know anything about this stuff at all. And I guess let me just go into it now, but I'll show you a tweet that shows this example later. When Green Lantern came out before the movie with Ryan Reynolds, and he played Hal Jordan. And at that time, the Justice League cartoon was on, and people really liked Justice League, it was popular and stuff. And Jon Stewart was a member of the Justice League, and that they featured. So when the movie it was about Hal Jordan, who was a white guy, was played by Ryan Reynolds. The movie didn't do very well, but the movie was but it was, Hal Jordan is a white guy, I promise you. People were angry that they casted a white person. I'm like, Hal Jordan is white. But they were mad because they thought it was racist that they weren't making a Green Lantern movie about Jon Stewart. They thought they just replaced him. I'm like, okay. This is about Hal Jordan. It's not about Jon Stewart. Hal Jordan is a very, very, very popular Green Lantern. Like if they're going to make a movie about a Green Lantern, it 100% it 100% makes sense that it's about Hal Jordan. I promise you. Right? Makes sense. And then even explaining to people that it's supposed to be about Hal Jordan, and Jon Stewart is a different person because it's Green Lantern Corps. They have a bunch of different Green Lanterns, and there's several from Earth. They still didn't care. They still thought the fact that they weren't making the movie about Jon Stewart was a choice. Obviously, it's a choice, but a choice to be racist because they'd rather have it about the white person and not Jon Stewart. So it was just remarkable. And so I was trying to see if Eric July had any commentary about this subject yet, and I don't know if he had as a video about it yet, but I was going through his Twitter feed and I couldn't find anything. But in my search, I found him debating someone who had a similar experience as I did, debating people and they didn't realize, like, Jon Stewart. I mean, and how I don't know if they didn't think that they were different people, or they just thought that the movie should have been about a black guy back in the past. So anyway, here's King Lion's video about this controversy.
For,
Second back.
So with the recent controversy for, I guess DC is being a colorist, a racist or something. And y'all's reasoning is because Jon Stewart has always been depicted as a dark-skinned black man. I'm just going to say this. 98% of everybody complaining about this shit doesn't read Green Lantern comics, and they don't give a fuck. Because if they read Green Lantern comics, right, they would never have made any of these fucking posts. I own most of the shit. Don't make me go grab some books. Y'all know me. Don't make me grab some books. But the motherfucker you got cast as he's fucking darker than me. Look, he's fucking darker than me. He's brown-skinned. Jon Stewart is depicted as a brown-skinned black man. I don't know why y'all keep talking about he's supposed to be dark. No, he's brown sugar. Again, unlike y'all, I buy this shit. I own most of it. Y'all be going on Google and y'all look at these covers and that's it. How they're drawn on covers is not how they're drawn in the book. He's a dark-skinned black. He's brown, bruh. Brown. Technically, in this bitch, they got him orange. Like, do you not see this shit? Like, even when it comes down to some of our newest Green Lanterns, right? Sometimes even she gets drawn somewhat lighter or somewhat darker. It depends on the artist in a lot of these cases. For the most part, he gets drawn as a brown-skinned man. At the end of the day, black people come in all different shapes, colors, and sizes, God damn it. Why the fuck are we arguing about this? That don't make no fucking sense. I'm gonna say it again. I'm lighter than him. Literally, I'm fucking lighter than him. And that motherfucker is darker than me. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. They could have easily casted him. He would have been a perfect Jon Stewart, literally. But this is who we got. I just don't see the point in crying about this. Like, at the end of the day, that's one of us. That's one of our fucking people getting to play the role of Jon Stewart Green Lantern. And instead of us shitting on him and shitting on DC, I feel like this is a great moment for him, specifically in his career. And I'm happy he got the fucking opportunity. And maybe I got to be the only motherfucker with common sense, but I'm happy as fuck that this black man, again, this black man who is fucking darker than me. I'm so fucking happy he got this fucking opportunity to get to play one of the most iconic fucking characters in the DC universe. And what the fuck I'm not gonna do is try to overshadow this man's success because he's not 2 shades darker. What kind of shit is that? Like, what the fuck is wrong with us as a fucking...
Yeah, I'm sorry about all of the cursing and stuff, but he broke out all the comic books and stuff, so I really wanted to show that particular video, and I'll let the rest play out. But I'm like trying to look at his IMDb because I don't think he's been in a lot of stuff. So as he said, this is a lot of this is a big moment in his career. He's got 3 upcoming projects, one being the Mufasa. He's voicing Mufasa. I don't expect that to be great though. He did so Rebel Ridge. It's only got 6.9 on IMDb. It's a pretty good movie. She was in a show called Genius. For 8 episodes, something called Foe, Brother, Old. I didn't see Old, but I know what that is. The Underground Railroad. So he was in 6 episodes of that. So I didn't see that. Maybe I should. My sister watched that. I think she liked that. He was in Krypton. It was on Sci-Fi, and I for 20 episodes. I actually didn't watch that either. Britannia, The A Word, and Prime Suspects, and a short. So he's building his career, and with Rebel Ridge, he was the lead of that film, and he carried the movie well. So I I have no doubt that he can play the role. And there's definitely images where he's lighter, and by the way, some of that is like him maybe being lighter and maybe him tanning, because people tend to do that when they get out in the sun. There's people who that you think are pretty dark who are less dark in the winter. People tend to change their shades a bit. But some of it is lighting, though, people brighter or whatever, but he's a black man, and just crapping on him during this time, it just seems so weird, because people will stand up, for people who are totally the wrong race for a character, and they're like, "Why you talk about, Halle Bailey? Like, Halle, this is a Halle Bailey's moment, y'all coming at her and stuff." Like, okay, but this guy is actually a black guy playing a black man, and you're mad because he's not dark enough. When he's right, how they look in the books really depends on who's drawing them at the time. So again, he had a presence about him. Like, I think he can do the role and kind of like come off sounding like, as most people kind of imagine Jon Stewart, as his voice was in the cartoon and stuff. I just think he can do the role, and obviously DC thought so. And he's an up and coming young man, so to me it makes sense. But folks just want to be mad.
On with us as a fucking people. No. We can't be proud that one of our own is taking on this role. No. We're gonna shit on DC and shit on him because he's not dark enough. Make it make fucking sense. We're gonna shit on him because he's brown. What the really? Just remember, guys, even when you're black, if you're not dark enough, you cannot play certain characters down. He's darker than me. I just want to point that out. The motherfucker is darker than me, and we gonna shit on him. Could you just imagine waking up as him to hear that you're not being loved for the choice because you're not dark enough? No. You're brown. That's great. You're just not dark enough. Imagine that.
Yeah. So it's a shame. Let me show you the other one, because this person brings some receipts for some folks who's been upset about it, but they were so happy. For example, not Guardians. I don't know why I keep saying Guardians of the Galaxy. How to Train Your Dragon. For example, they have a live action, I think, film coming out, and Astrid is not a white girl. So they were happy about that, but this guy is too light-skinned.
Aaron Pierre from the Netflix film Rebel Ridge has been cast as the upcoming live-action Jon Stewart Green Lantern. And some of the reactions to this news, it's pretty much what I expected. Take a look.
Aaron Pierre is going to be playing Jon Stewart, aka Green Lantern. You know the problem before I even say it. It's the blatant colorism. Am I happy that my internet husband is getting another black job? Yes. Am I also saying, hey, you could have said no to this black job? Yes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Wasn't this you?
Miss Nico Parker, she is going to be playing Astrid in the live action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon. And of course, the racists are already pissed off because she has that ounce of melanin from her mama.
And now that I think about it, wasn't this you too?
This is how you have your black co-stars backs. Hallie is perfect for the part, is going to blow everybody away. It wasn't the red hair that y'all had a problem with. It was the melanin. The way that these POC women are going to run the Disney franchise for the next 10 plus years, I just love it.
You know, the grotesque stench of hypocrisy from people like this, it's just too much to handle at this point. These people do not care about prejudice towards particular skin colors or racial features.
What he just showed was like an image of like a bunch of redheads who were replaced by black people. So you guys can Google that image. But
people do not care about media erasure until it fits their victim narrative. Does the nitpick within me think that maybe the live action Jon Stewart could be a little bit darker? Sure. But if it's silly to be upset about the Little Mermaid casting because these castings should be based on merit outside of accuracy towards the source material, if it's silly to be upset about the Astrid casting because she just has a hint more melanin than the original character, then why exactly do y'all feel some type of way about a man who we know can embody the character of Jon Stewart but has just a hint less melanin? It's because these people are racially narcissistic. If it does not benefit people that they believe look like them, and if it does not benefit people that they believe are similar to them, they aren't going to care about consistency. Anyways, the casting for Tiana in the new Princess and the Frog movie coming out in 2026 has just been announced. And may I say, I believe they did an excellent job because Sabrina Carpenter was made for this role.
So the Sabrina Carpenter thing is a joke, but Sabrina Carpenter can sing though. Yeah, people, these same people were so hype, and the How to Train Your Dragon thing with Astrid, she doesn't even look. The young actress doesn't even look like. Beyond her being brown, like Astrid, you know. I would imagine Dakota Fanning is too old now, but definitely too old, but for that role. But like somebody along those lines, or the girl who played Luna Lovegood on like Harry Potter, like I would be thinking someone, you know, like that to play Astrid, not somebody who they got. Even it's just doesn't fit it at all, and they don't care because they're just like, she gonna be black today. and they're happy about that. You know, people were happy when Namor was gonna be Hispanic, and I'm just like, that's not what Namor looks like. They tease him in the comics for like being pink skinned, which, you know, he's not technically pink, but he was like a white guy. So it's he's not brown. And then people were criticizing me for mentioning it because they're like, well, why aren't you happy? Like, I'm like, I'm not Hispanic. You know, why should I? You just want me to be happy because he's just not white? And yes, that's the answer. That's the answer. They, you know, it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Again, this guy is a rising star, you know. It appears to be on that track. And I'm assuming auditioned and did a decent job, but I don't know how that went. But I can just say, after watching Rebel Ridge, I think he can do it. I'm not saying that there aren't other people who could have did it, but there's lots of factors that people consider. Like Halle Bailey didn't just get the job because she was, I assume because she was, you know, it wasn't the quality of that film, which I watched most of it because my nieces were watching it during a holiday over at my parents' house. So the quality of that film did not live up to the hype or the controversy that surrounded it. There was no justification. Halle Bailey, I think at times she could sound like Ariel, like you in her speaking voice. She's a tremendous singer, you know, but the hair color, just decisions that they made did make any sense. And the plot changes. I don't know what's wrong with Disney. I don't know what's wrong with these people. um, at all. But you can't be ecstatic that those characters, their melon is different. That Snow White, you're happy because Snow White isn't white as snow. You're so proud of that, and then you just want to crap on a black dude because, or the casting of a black man because he's not black enough. It's just weird. It's just weird. Anyway, that's all I got to say today. I wonder if Eric July or somebody else is going to talk about it. But as King Lion said, like their shades really depend on the comic book artist and how they, do it. How they color him, the colorist, and all that stuff. So he's obviously supposed to be a black man, and they got a black guy. And to those of you who are mad because he tanned, it's just something that happens in the sun. Get over it. I guess. Get over it. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream and run my site and all that good stuff. So if you can support, I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. Please check out different merch that's also available on the store. I saw somebody had got a pumpkin spice season. I have this in a mug, obviously, but I have it in a t-shirt. So I saw someone got the t-shirt the other day. So I just want to point out that the pumpkin spice season, it is in a t-shirt. So you guys can check that out if you want. But there's other stuff you guys can get at the store. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.